Hi there, this is Terry and Danielle, and we are so excited to introduce this video that we facilitated, and we are very excited because it touches on a subject that a lot of people have not even thought about or have heard that perspective before. So we are talking about the men's perspective of breast implant illness. What did you get out of it, Danielle? What did you think?
It's so funny. I'm speechless by it because I I just didn't think of their perspective when I was going through BII. I was just trying to survive and make it through. And so to be able to have the opportunity to sit back and to listen how they dealt with it was quite impactful. And so I hope other men can listen to their discussion. I hope for future we can have more discussions with, boyfriends, brothers, uncles, dads, and intermix the whole thing because they do shed a different light on it. And they went through a lot as well, right? How about for you being able to hear your husband? I'm sure you guys have talked about it before, but for your husband to share in this
But in a
capacity.
different light, because normally he was being very supportive to me. So hearing him speak in a very vulnerable way of what things matter to him, I kind of knew, but to hear it was just enlightening for me because I feel like just the same as you, I was surviving. I was just trying to get through the day and just, you know, be alive. And it affected everyone in my family. I had a whole family circle that lived with me that dealt with different aspects of it. So to me, after hearing Carlos, it's very interesting. I'd love to hear my boy's perspective of living
Oh
through it,
yeah.
and my mom is no longer with us, but she lived with me during it too. And she picked up a lot of slack for me. She took care of a lot of things. So I'm sure she has her perspective. So I'm sure this will relate to our community, seeing the impact that it has on family.
Yeah.
And but just seeing three husbands speak so openly and candidly about their feelings, and you can see it, they hurt during that time because I think men love to protect, and that's something that you can't protect from. It's something from the inside out. So
Yeah, I can't imagine the helplessness they felt. I know what I felt, right? But to see it mirrored back is quite impressive. So I hope people will listen and share this video with Alex Charfen and Carlos Diaz and Bill Lykins.
Well, Bill, Carlos, it's good to meet both of you. I think this is a really fascinating way to meet a couple of guys who've been through a similar experience that I've been through. And, it's funny, I was raised in a breastfeeding support group called La Leche League. So I'm accustomed to being around breastfeeding and around, let's be honest, around breasts. And so, but I know that a lot of men aren't. So this is one of those really interesting times where I was just kidding with my wife coming in here, like, "Oh, Katie, I've got to go talk about your breasts for a couple of minutes with some guys on a symposium." And so it's good to meet you both.
Good to meet you as well.
It'll be a great conversation.
Yeah, I think this is not only a great conversation, but one that's really important. And so I think what would be good is why don't we just each give a real brief introduction, like who we are and what is our brief experience with breast implant illness and just some of the details. And so my name's Alex Charfen. I'm a business coach. I help entrepreneurs grow and scale their businesses. My wife and I have worked together for 20 years. We've been married for 18 years. She got breast implants. I wrote down some notes here because I'm terrible with dates. She got breast implants in 2009. And she had them until 2016 when she explanted. So it was a 7-year experience for us. I have a 12-year-old daughter. So she got them when my daughter was about 5. And it was one of the most challenging things that we've been through as a couple. And so I don't want to give away too much more than that. I just want people to have context for high level, and then we can jump in and start getting into the questions. Carlos, do you want to share?
Yes, my name is Carlos Diaz. I'm originally from Puerto Rico, live in Orlando now. My wife, we've been together for 20 years. She got the implants in 2006. She removed them in December 2016. We went to a lot of different doctors, and finally, one doctor said, "Okay, yes, that is your breast implant that is killing you."
Wow. I'm glad that you found a doctor. I want to jump into that conversation of like going to all the doctors and chasing the illness. But first, I'd like to give Bill an opportunity to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Bill Lykins. Just retired as an airline pilot, and I'm a film producer. Julie and I have been married for 38 years. Her implants were back in 1990.
Oh, wow.
And she explanted in 2016. And what a ride, guys. What a ride. A lot to talk about here. Don't want women to have to go through this, or their families, you know?
Yeah, no
mean, we got to love them, and we got to get through this together, for sure.
Yeah, well, let's open the conversation with maybe with each of us just a brief history of, did your wife have implants when she met her? If not, how long were you together before she got them? And then what was just like, let's get some highlights of that initial experience of when the symptoms started to set in. And Bill, I'd like to start with you, because I think of the time that Katie had implants, it was about 7 years, and it felt like the longest 7 years of my life. I'm 49 years old, and still that period of time stands out as this period with so much stress and pressure and nervous system deregulation. The fact that it goes back to 1990 for you is, I can't imagine, more than double the time going through that. So what was that like, Bill? Give us high level.
So we got married, we met in 81, got married in 83. Been together a long time. Through the 80s, we had 2 kids, and Julie never considered, I don't think, implants, as far as I know. One day she just came to me and said, "I'd like to do this." And, I was supportive of her, whatever makes her happy. She was, she just had 2 kids and nursed them. And like I would imagine a lot of women go through, it was tough on her. And I just said, "Whatever you want to do, I love you, and let's do it." So she got them done. The 90s were, were okay. I think she would tell you. I think that for up until she had a car accident in 2010, I don't think she had a lot of problems with it. Although when I look back, I think we see little signs. But she had a car accident in 2010, and it was a really bad one. And it ruptured the implants, although no doctor would say that they were ruptured. We had, I say we because all the guys that go through this can relate to this. You go through it. It's a family thing, and you feel it. And when you see her upset, you're upset. And we could both see that something was really drastically wrong. Except for every doctor said you're crazy, and there's no way. And I think we've all heard that term. You're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm a doctor. I know this stuff. That's crap. It just is crap, in my opinion. I got a lot of friends that are doctors. It's crap. When a woman says something's wrong, something's wrong. Don't tell her she's crazy. So anyway, we went through this. We've been together a lot of years, so we knew each other pretty well. And when she started going through all the symptoms and stuff, it was clear there was something wrong.
Yeah.
I may have missed something in your question, but
No, that was great, Bill.
That's the gist of it, man.
Yeah, we'll come back to some of what you said. I just want to give everyone context. So Carlos, same question for you. So high level, give us a kind of the history of the journey. We know the dates, but tell us kind of how it happened for you.
So Terry and I met inside Disney in 2002. We started dating. We got married in 2006. a month before we got married, that's when she got her implants. And she asked me, and I said, hey, it's up to you. You know, I don't recommend them, but if you want, go ahead and put them on. I support you 100% on anything. So she got them on, and everything was fine till after a year. Then she started getting feelings. You know, like we used to eat out a lot. We used to play beach volleyball a lot. And all of a sudden she started getting tired, fatigued, things like that. And I'm like, that's not my Terry, you know? So I didn't make anything about it, you know? We opened our business inside the airport in 2007. So I figured it was the stress of, you know, having your own business and all that. And fast forward, we went to a bunch of different doctors, the same as Bill. Oh, you're crazy, you're crazy. The last doctor that we went was a hematologist. They dissect the blood, and the lady, it's a lady, it's not a guy, it's a lady, and came back and said, ma'am, I really have real patients. I'm going to give you Prozac because I think it's something mentally. You know, I don't see nothing wrong with you. And of course, I'm right there in front of Terry. She started crying. I got mad and angry. After that, she didn't want to go to any other doctor. Finally, we went to a Chinese doctor. He's a naturalist. So we went to him, and he looked at her eyes and said, "Hey, but you have breast implant, right?" And she said, "Yeah." So that's what's killing you. And then from there on, the rest is history. You know, like she got them removed, and automatically, 1-2 days later after that, she's going for walks with me already.
Yeah.
Literally like that. Her mom used to live with us. She passed away of COVID, but her mom and her thought one time that I was killing them because I'm the cook in the family. Terry doesn't cook. So since I'm the one that prepares all her meals, at one point, because she couldn't find, we went from doctor to doctor, they thought it was me poisoning her or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll share the same. So, you know, Katie and I got, or Katie and I had 2 kids. We had 2 kids together, and it was very similar, Bill. She had 2 kids. She nursed both of them. And both of my daughters had extended nursing, like into, you know, well into the 2nd year. I think my younger daughter kind of got cut off because it was too much at that point for Katie, but they nursed for a long time. And she went, and I think it was like a casual visit to a dermatology office, to a place here in Austin called Westlake Dermatology, where she went to have something done with her skin or something like that. And then the doctor started like making some recommendations, and there was some type of a package for, it was like the mom's package or the post baby package or something. And it was some liposuction and I think some type of a minor tummy tuck or something like that. And then breast implants or a breast lift. What they called it was a breast lift. And Katie came home and told me that it was something that she wanted to do. And, you know, I had actually dated women before that had breast implants, and aesthetically, I always found them kind of a turnoff because they don't look natural. And I mean, I was, you know, I think that's the best way to put it. They look very plastic. They look like a doll. And so I wasn't particularly excited about it, but I also wasn't going to get in her way. It was something that she said she wanted to do for her self-esteem, and the state of her breast was really bothering her. And so she went in for the surgery. And I don't know if your wives had this same experience, but now that I've talked to so many women who have had implants, and Katie's talked to so many women who have implants, she went in, she already had a double D size cup, and she went in, and I think the implants that were put in were 385 cc's. So she ended up with like a J size cup. And apparently, and she had told the doctor that she didn't want to go any larger, but the doctor told her after the surgery that he had made the decision in the operating room that, you know, she needed bigger because it would
that
just
happens to Terry too.
Did Terry have the same thing?
Yes, that happens to Terry. She had a specific size going in,
yeah.
And after that, it was a size bigger.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, it's like the doctor made the decision for her, and Katie was part of a very large percentage of women that do not get talked about who had the breast implant put in. And then she had the implants put in. They were way too large. But the doctor told her that's what she needed, or she felt like they were too large, but the doctor told her that's what she needed. When I go back and look at pictures now compared to before and after, she looks so much better now. She had keloid scarring on both breasts. And so she had to have a second surgery within a couple of years of the first surgery. Actually, the first one was within a year. The second one was in a couple of years. And then she actually had a third surgery on one of them. And you know what, when it comes to informed consent around breast implants, it barely exists. Nobody tells you that 40% of women are going to have a second surgery. Nobody tells you that within 10 years, you're going to have to take them out and have them replaced in most cases, or they become dangerous. You know, there's no discussion around really how this works. And so I think what I'd like to do is kind of open up the discussion of before and after, you know, so and some of the symptoms. You know, I think when you look at breast implant illness, there's all types of physiological symptoms that women have. And I don't know if you guys had the same thing, but Katie had rashes. She had heart palpitations. She sometimes had like speeding heartbeat, like no reason. She'd just be standing still and it would go up to 120 beats a minute. She had her eyes were always kind of itchy and sunken in. Her skin was really challenged by the toxicity of her body. But I think what doesn't often get talked about is all the psychological symptoms, because when I go back to that period of time, there was this level of paranoia and aggression and frustration and anger that sometimes would come out of nowhere. And what felt like to me were deceptive behaviors, but now that we've talked about it and we're on the other side, we're really just behaviors that were born out of confusion and this level of not really understanding what was going on and not understanding how she was under attack. And, you know, I go back to that time, and it makes me wonder how many marriages and relationships and friendships and familial relationships have been destroyed because a woman has breast implants, because the behavior was so challenging and so difficult to live with for me as her spouse. I can't imagine just how challenging it was for her to be on the other side of that, just now that I know what was really going on, because within about 24 to 48 hours of the implants coming out, all of those psychological symptoms, the ones that I was affected by, were gone. Did you have a similar experience, Bill?
Yeah, I was going to say too that you can imagine the women that are going through this alone and don't have anybody to talk to through it. You know,
Or the people that blame them.
tough thing to go
Oh,
through.
that was you for vanity. The people that blame them, if they knew what were they getting into, they will not wait 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years to get them out. They will
Right.
not right away. But because there's not information when
Oh,
they
yeah.
put it in, the doctor won't tell you, oh, this is gonna happen to you. No, they just want the money and hey, next.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, we went through, or I went to the doctor's appointments with Joy, and you know, we didn't know any better. We were pretty young and kind of didn't know any better to ask the questions. And you know, there was nothing negative there. There wasn't anything from the doctor that said, listen, you got to look at both sides of this. Not at all. This is, you know, a normal thing. And
Bill, did you hear the phrase absolutely safe over and over again?
Absolutely.
Absolutely safe.
Yeah, absolutely safe. You'll never have to, you know, do any maintenance as far as, you know, changing them out and just nothing. They just, everything's, you know, just perfect. And you're gonna, you know, it's just a bunch of crap, if I could just be honest with you. But, you know, you were asking me, you know, what, you know, symptoms she had. And, you know, one of the big ones, there's so many big ones, but Julie lost hair like crazy. Which, you know, it really affects your self-esteem, you know. Lights, we would go to church and, you know, they would, you know, do the worship, and it was kind of crazy because she could not handle the lights. She couldn't handle the sound. Or you would sit there and, you know, you'd listen to the service or whatever. It was just too noisy. We had to go get earplugs for her. She was just so sensitive. When we went into the bathroom, you know, we got sinks next to each other. I could not turn on the lights. They were just crazy. Matter of fact, to today, you know, we've been married 38 years. We went through this, you know, a while ago now. I still am afraid to turn on the lights around her because it's ingrained in me now. I don't want to hurt her. I don't want her to feel bad, and it's something that's gone now. But it's weird how you hang on to that. You know, the night sweats, having to change the sheets all the time. You know, it's insane. The migraines, I mean, the list, guys, is a mile long. And the second she had them out, everything was gone. She was 80% the next day, maybe the next 2 days. I mean, it just was. Anybody who doesn't believe that it's because of the implants just simply is not paying attention. They don't know anybody. They've never been through this with somebody. They've never paid any attention to these women who are going through this very difficult thing in their lives, because anybody with a half a brain would see when they have the explant and the symptoms go away. There's something to this. Blows my mind that doctors and people, oh, I have degrees, I'm a doctor. It's a bunch of bullshit, guys. It just, you just don't care. It's affecting your bottom line, is my opinion. And again, I got friends that are doctors, and I tell them this as well.
I agree with you, Bill. I think we before we started recording, we were kind of having kind of a high level conversation that, if you look at the medical industry as a whole, women are basically disregarded in the medical industry. And I don't think a lot of people know just how dramatic that is. But up until just a few years ago, 100% of clinical trials that were done on any medication were done exclusively on men. And, because women have menstrual cycles, and oftentimes that hormonal change would throw off the results of drug trials. So for decades, since the beginning of medicine, medications were tested only on men and then used on women. And so when you go back 15 or 20 years ago, I don't know if you remember, there was a rash of very odd news stories about women like driving their van with their kids into water, or killing their babies, or having like crazy road rage. And, a lot of that was due to them taking the wrong level of a prescription drug, and the medical industry didn't recognize it for years. And so the fact that breast implants have been around for as long as they have, and they're still to this day considered absolutely safe, like you said, Bill, it's a joke, but it is also a condition of a very long history of the medical industry that basically doesn't listen to women. Let's get real. I mean, I'm sure you maybe, or I don't know for sure, but Carlos and Bill, I went to a lot of appointments with Katie in that 7-year period.
We spent over $100,000 going from doctor to doctor to doctor. Literally, most doctors will say, "Oh, it's menopause. Oh no, it's your age. Your body's changing because of you're getting to your 40s already." And
it was interesting.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but what was interesting is you could tell when, in our case, when Julie's talking to the doctor and she's passionately telling them what's going on with her, he was thinking about how he was going to respond without even listening to her.
There was a response queued up. Yeah.
Oh, can't answer.
I remember, it almost became like a pattern. So Carlos, we did the same thing. I was willing to spend any amount of money that we needed to. Katie and I do really well. And so we literally went around the country trying to find we went from doctors to functional medicine doctors to hematologists to, whatever specialty there was out there, we probably went through it. I mean, I was at the point where we were going to like shamans and witch doctors next. And we were fortunate enough to Katie found the group Breast Implant Illness by Nicole on Facebook. And there was a woman who had posted all of her symptoms, and Katie read it and came like running into the room crying and said, "Alex, I think this is what it is." And I never would have thought that this is what it is, but it was all those symptoms. And Bill, you talked about hair loss. Katie has recovered, I would say, from 95% of the symptoms, but she had, like I said earlier, I just jotted some of them down. It was hair loss, skin issues, bruising, blisters, night sweats, headaches, muscle pain, inflammation, like of the joints of the neck, always feeling like something was wrong, always being short of breath. And not only short of breath, and oftentimes having like runaway heartbeats. The one thing that she still is challenged by is loss of hair. And she, it's even though we're now, it's 7 years or 6 or 7 years after the explant, we're still kind of trying to get past that level of toxicity. But when you go to the appointments with all of the specialists, there's this, it's exactly what you described, Bill. It's like, no matter what your wife says, there's this demeaning and almost derogatory response of, and for my wife, it was always, you're running a business and it's too much stress. You know, you and your wife, you and your husband are really successful. So that creates a lot of stress. You know, at the time we had a pretty big presence in the real estate industry and some other industries. And they said, well, you know, being in the public eye really changes things and makes it really difficult. That's probably it. And you have 2 kids. And so the majority of doctors that we went to blamed our lives for the issues she was having without, and it felt like there was never even a line of inquiry from them to say, hey, what it sounds like is there's this level of toxicity in your body and there's something that's causing a whole bunch of symptoms. Let's see if we can chase down that thing that's causing the symptoms. Not once did we get that from any doctor we went to. Carlos, was your experience similar?
We thought very similar, because with us, we will go to one doctor and, okay, let's do this, let's try this, let's try that. She got her gallbladder removed. She got colonoscopy done.
Yeah. Oh, no.
A lot of different things.
Colonoscopy.
Just let's see if this work, you know, till finally, you know, referring from one doctor to the next, we went to the hematologist. And after that, you know, that Terry was done already. She said, you know what? I don't know if it's my fate or why I came through this, but she was 4 years bedridden. We live in a 2-story house, and she will go upstairs and have to lay down for an hour just to rest. Or downstairs, before she eats, she will have to lay down to rest because she was that severe of fatigue.
Yeah.
But very, very tired. And till this day, now she has the, like in her feet, pain needles. She has that every night. I have to massage with a magnesium in order for her to fall asleep. But from as soon as she explant, by the next day or 2, she was already walking, and now she does 4 or 5 miles of running, walk. You know, she has a active life now. But when she had the implants, for us, it was a disaster. You know, like, hey, let's do this. No, we can't. No, let's do that. No, we can't, because how severe fatigue she was. And not to mention, with her, it was running to the bathroom, spend an hour in the bathroom, come back out, and she was tired of being in the bathroom.
Yeah. No, same thing with Katie. I remember, you know, when Katie and I got married, we almost immediately started working together, and we grew some very successful businesses together, and we were putting in a lot of time. Like, we would work, before we had kids, we would work 12 or 14 hours a day because we were having fun. We were working together. It was something we were both really passionate about. And within about a year of within a few months of getting the implants, there were so many issues with the keloid scarring and the pain she was experiencing, and just constantly being in pain, constantly being sore, that it totally affected her ability to focus. But about a year later, it was the same thing. I would go into her office and she'd be asleep at her desk, or with her head on the desk, or she would say, I'm going to go lay down for 15 minutes and wake up 4 hours later. And like, she was like a shell of what she had been. And it was so hard to understand. For a long time, I thought that she was dying. I thought that
right?
Yeah, like I was near certain that she had to have some chronic disease that we didn't understand. And then here's what happened. And this is interesting, because I've talked to a lot of other women, like I said, because of the videos that I've done and because of some of the exposure that we've gotten around this, I've been able to talk to a lot of women and men about breast implant illness. And these are some of the diagnoses that she was told she might have: chronic fatigue, Hashimoto's, Crohn's, colitis, Lyme disease. There's this list of all these autoimmune issues that doctors say, oh, it's probably this, it's probably this, it's probably this. And some of them you can't test for. You can't test for a chronic fatigue. You can't test for Hashimoto's. You can barely test for Lyme disease. There's some tests out there that some doctors believe work, some don't. And so they give you these diagnoses that feel, let's be real, they feel like a death sentence. They feel like this, you're going to have this for the rest of your life. And the reality is none of them are looking at what's causing the toxicity that's really making this happen.
Not only does it feel like a death sentence, Julie got down to, I think it was 92 pounds.
Oh God.
Dude, when I would touch her, she would just shriek in pain. Yeah. I mean, you know, you talk about how this affects your marriage, your relationship, and all that stuff. I couldn't hold her hand, you know, which was what we do. You know, it just, you talk about death sentence, man. she looked like it.
Yeah.
If I'm being real with you, it scared the crap out of me, and it scared the crap out of her. You know,
What kind of implant did she have? Saline or
I'm sorry?
silicone? What kind of implants did she have? Silicone or saline?
She had silicone. And, you know, talk about that, you know, she still has these little pieces that come out of her skin of silicone.
With the red blisters.
Yeah, and migrating out of her body, you know, I mean, you know, because the shell, it's just crazy. The shell is silicone. No matter if you have saline or silicone or whatever, you know, it's migrating through their bodies. It's flaking off.
Well, Bill, you make such a good point, because if you read the black box warning for breast implants, which, by the way, I've never met a single woman that was given the black box warning by her dermatologist or plastic surgeon or whoever. Right. And I've never met a single one of them that actually had informed consent. Never. And if you read that warning, it actually tells you that over the course of time, the shell of the breast implant breaks down. And it's made out of this thing called silicon. But if you look at it, there's over 50 different toxic materials in the quote unquote silicon. Silicon's a naturally occurring substance. It is not that. They've gotten the permission to call it silicone implants or silicone implants. And even if you have saline, the reality is, the challenge is that the shell is made out of silicon. And over the course of about a decade, it breaks down and it becomes thinner and it becomes more brittle, and it can rupture. But here's what we need to look at that, like read between the lines. If it's breaking down in a area right next to the chest cavity, right next to the heart, which is the two areas of the highest mitochondria or cellular activity or cellular density in the body are the brain and the heart. And so you have this toxic substance with over 50 toxic heavy metals in it breaking down right next to the heart. And then we're surprised that women are having these massive reactions and that there's an issue and that it's night and day when they come out. You know, in a lot of cases, like when you do before and after pictures for a diet or something, you might do before and after pictures after 90 days. A friend of mine's wife, Amber Sears, JP Sears' wife here in Austin, a lot of people might know that name. She recently had her implants taken out, and she did a before and after 24 hours later, and she looks like two different people. In the before, her eyes are red and glossy, and her skin's all patchy and dark and red, and she looks exhausted. And 24 hours later, her skin's already cleared up. Her eyes look clear and white. There's a different like quality to her face. And so, Bill, you know, when you say that there's still people out there who are saying that it's not the breast implants, the level of craziness and the level of denial of reality for the women that are out there suffering through this is just horrible. Because here's what I think happens a lot of time. And I want both of you, I want all three of us to speak to this. You know, one of the things that Katie and I have now been exposed to more than once is a woman who is dying from her implants, because I think that's just how it is. You're dying from your implants, and her husband doesn't want her to get them out, or her boyfriend doesn't want her to get them out.
To lose the husband or the boyfriend. Yeah,
well,
I mean, I'm sorry, I'm emotional about it, but really?
You know, it's now happened so many. Here's what happens, Bill. And I want to speak to these men. I think for the three of us, I think we should speak to these men, because then women can use this recording to say, hey, can you watch this, please? Because when Katie was out of surgery, I had already done a ton of research about this. And you know, when you look at whether it is or isn't the implants, the reality behind this is that it is 100% affecting your wife, your girlfriend, your significant other in ways that you just don't understand. And by the way, we've listed a bunch of stuff, but we have not given an exhaustive list of all the things that are happening, because Katie also had hormonal issues, adrenal issues, thyroid issues. Basically, every system in the body of a woman who has implants is under attack. And here's what men have told me. They say things like, oh, but you know, for years they were fine. How could it be the implant? Well,
it's never been fine.
Yeah. Or
Right.
you know, I've gone to doctor's appointments with her and they say they're absolutely safe. And so here's my message to the men out there is that when you look at what happens with breast implant illness, it actually it's a degrading illness. It becomes worse over time, because the human body has an amazing ability to detoxify. amazing. Like we can expose ourselves to chemicals, we can expose ourselves to toxins, we can expose ourselves to bad medications, to all kinds of stuff. And our bodies are detoxification machines. But what happens is over time, that ability to detox becomes degraded just because there's this massive toxin of the breast implants. But then you add anything else. You add a car accident, like in your case, Bill, or you add a stressor of a parent dying that is emotional stress and physiological stress. You add the stressor of having COVID. I've talked to now a bunch of women who have never had a problem with their implants, but now have COVID and can't get over it. And or have this what a lot of people are calling long COVID, but to me sounds like breast implant illness. It's because your body's detoxing great right up until it has to detox this really challenging pathogen called COVID-19, and then it can't keep up with the breast implant illness anymore. And so, my message to the men out there that are saying like, is this real? Here's what I can tell you personally. It's the most real medical experience I've ever been through, and the change night and day from one day to the next day was so profound that there's no one who could ever make an argument with me that it wasn't the breast implants. Katie actually worked with a doctor who unfortunately has now retired and was one of the most brilliant physicians I've ever met, Dr. Melman in Dallas. And he had been rallying against breast implants since 1993. He actually testified in front of Congress in the 90s to have a more dramatic warning put on breast implants because he kept seeing all these women with exactly the same symptoms. And you take out the implants and all the symptoms go away. And I remember when Katie and I went in for her consultation with him, she said, we sat down and she didn't even have to barely talk. He just said, here's what I think's going on. And then he said, here's what's probably happened. And then he told her story. He said, here's the symptoms you're having. All the doctors are telling you it's you, and they're patting you on the back of your hand and sending you out of your office with no solutions. And you probably feel like you're going crazy. And I want you to know I've been doing this since 1993, and we're going to remove your implants. You're going to look great, and you're going to feel great by tomorrow afternoon. And Katie just started crying. And because he knew exactly what was going on. And literally from the day to the next day, I remember her waking up and she was crying when we woke up, and I thought something was wrong. And I said, are you okay? Is everything okay? And she said, I haven't been able to breathe like I'm breathing right now for 7 years. And she's like, I forgot what it felt like to take a full breath because of the pressure of the implants on the chest actually constrict your breathing. I know women who are athletes that have these things. And so if there's any doubt in your mind as a man that should your wife take these out or not, I can tell you my wife looks better. I feel like I finally have the person I married back. There is no aesthetic change in the world that is worth the physiological and the psychological stress that she went through and that our whole family went through. And there's no doubt in my mind. And for any man who's having a hard time with this, like, I really want you to think about this. Is your wife or girlfriend her breasts?
Not at all. Not at all.
You're saying, if you don't want her to take them out, that's actually the statement you're making, is that these are more important than us being able to be together. And just one last statement, Carlos, and then I'll hand it over to you. The day after, so 2 days after the surgery, after the tubes had come out, Katie came up to me and she gave me a hug, and she was still sore from the surgery, but nowhere near as sore as she was when she had him back put in. And she hugged me and she said, it feels like this is the first time I've hugged you in 7 years, because when the implants are there, you can't hug heart to heart and chest to chest. Right. And it was a completely different experience. And so anyone who's on the fence about this, or any guy out there who's thinking like, maybe this is a better idea to keep him in, I want to encourage you with everything that I know about my relationship, that the faster you get these out, the faster you can keep building your relationship and living your life again. Carlos, I'll hand it over to you. I didn't mean to cut you off earlier.
No, you didn't. I have the same situation with Terry, because when she had the implants, we couldn't do anything. We couldn't do things together. She would say, go ahead, go and do it. And I would say, no, I'd rather do things with you, like going to restaurants, like going to parks, like going to the beach, stuff like that. And as soon as she got the implants out, it was like, where are we going? Where are we going now? What are we doing this weekend? What are we doing next weekend? So it was completely from day to night. I'm not saying she's 100% perfect, but literally the first, second day, third day, it was already changes for her. And the reason I asked earlier to Bill what kind of implant she had, because in your case, your wife was losing weight. In my case, Terry gained weight, out of the blue, out of nothing. She didn't change her habits of eating or anything, but she was, when I met her, she was about 125, 128. When she put the implant, she was about 135.
What did
After
she
that,
have?
say it again?
I'm sorry, what
Yeah,
did she?
She was about 125 to 128 on her weight. Once she put the implants, she was at 135. And within a couple of months later, now she was at 165.
Wow.
So that was 30 pounds. And she was like, I need to eat less. And I'm like, but you're barely eating. You haven't changed your habits of eating. And she gained so much weight that you will see on the pictures. As soon as she took those babies out, she was back to 134, 132, 133, 136, and then 130, but
That's
I'm
right.
like, wow, just because of the implants, nothing that she changed on her habits. And another unique thing about her, that we went to a doctor that did a test for when the stuff that you can eat, and she was all of a sudden
Sensitivities. Yeah.
sensitive. Yes, all of a sudden she was allergic to tomato, potato, wheat, chocolate, corn, dairy, oranges, bananas, pork, all of a sudden. So we couldn't eat anywhere, so that affect not just going to restaurants, but also at home, what we're cooking and what we're preparing. And, oh, no, we cannot go there. Oh, you want to come to a birthday? You want to come here? Sorry, I can't, So it put a big strain when it comes to that. Now, after the implants were out, everything, flourished again back to when we met and when we started dating and all that.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's very similar to my experience. Bill, would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%, almost verbatim. Alex, you asked what we would say to the guys. I guess I want to apologize. I mean, we're being real with each other, right, guys? I get emotional over this. I love my wife.
It's hard not to be emotional. It really
Oh,
is.
dude. And I say that of getting rid of him if he doesn't support you, because some guys are really that's important to them. Guys, it shouldn't be important to you. What should be important to you is your wife, your girlfriend, your partner, whatever, their health, just like your health is important to them. Show some compassion, show some love, show some sensitivity. If they say something's wrong, something's wrong. And if they say, I want to, I want to explant, dude, this is not about you. It's about them and their lives. Literally, we're talking about a human being's life.
Yeah.
Support them. You'll have so much of a better relationship when she's happy, when she's healthy, when she's safe. Protect her, go to the appointments. I'm sorry.
On that line, Bill, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think the main thing for guys is that because they don't see it physically, because VII is not something that you say, okay, I see something specific, because when you're dressed, maybe the rash doesn't show because it's under your clothes. Mm-hmm. When you having all those pains, you don't see it because the person trying to keep a normal life, not knowing what the ladies are going through. So for guys, it's like, oh, I don't see it, so you must be fine, And most guys live in society. Oh, my friend has this, I have to have the same. Oh, look, I like big breasts, so it's commercialized.
Superficial. Yeah,
it's superficial.
It's so superficial. And by the way, we're in a time now where our grandmothers have them, our daughters, our granddaughters. Guys, be aware of the women around you. Be aware of things that they may be going through. Showing these signs, ask them, talk to them. You love them. If it's your mom, have the conversation, man. I know it's a little weird, but it brings you closer together, and maybe they just don't know how to talk to anybody, and they're going through this alone, you know. And one other thing I wanted to say, Alex, I remember when Julie came out of surgery and that relief on her face, man.
I get a little like, I mean, I'm on the verge of tears just thinking about it, because, you know, breast implant illness is also such a bastard of a disease, because there's good days where it feels like everything's fine.
Right.
You know, I don't know if both of you remember, like there's times where you go, okay, well, like there's nothing really that big of a deal today. Like as time went on, we had fewer and fewer of those days. But you know, there was times where both Katie and I would be like, okay, it feels like you're okay, like things are okay, and you think everything's fine, and then it just comes back, and it's like goes on and off. And I remember going from feeling like Katie had some undiagnosed chronic disease that she was going to die from, to the second that Melmed wheeled, like this incredible doctor that she had, we went, you know, he actually came out and talked to me, and he said, you know, things went really well. We got the implants out, we got the capsule. He actually had them to show me. They were huge. I was so shocked at how big they were. And you know, he said, you're going to be shocked at how big of a change this is. And I had to wait for a little while longer for Katie to come out of the anesthesia. And I remember when I remember when Katie and I first met, she flew out to Florida, and we lived in different places, and I lived in Florida, and she came to visit. And I have this imprinted memory of being at Fort Lauderdale Airport and her coming through these double sliding glass doors, like confident and smiling and just looking amazing. It's like one of the best memories of my entire life. I have this second memory of sitting outside of the hospital in Dallas and waiting for the nurse to bring her out to the pickup area and wheeling her out in a wheelchair, but seeing her face and thinking like, holy shit, she's back. It's like, that's how big of a difference it was. And it was so hard not to get emotional. The video that a lot of women have seen, a lot of men have seen, that has gone kind of viral on social media and in some of the groups out there, was recorded the next morning, because I felt such a high level of emotions around how can it be this crazy of a difference. And that was when she still had the tubes in her body. When the tubes came out, things got even better. It's like 24 hours later, things were better, and 48 hours later, things got even better. And so, I agree with what you said, Bill. It's like if you're in the situation where you know a woman who has implants, if there's anything going on with her that she can't figure out, the default answer is this is exactly what it is. And it's been, you know, Katie and I have talked to so many women and so many men and helped a lot of women get out of this. And not once out of the hundreds of times has a woman come back to us and said nothing changed. Never. There is some unfortunate stories of women who explant and still have a ton of symptoms and still are dealing with it. And they've had leaking, or they had something else that happened in their body where they couldn't get all of it out, but not one ever has told us that there wasn't an improvement. 100% of them have been a massive, dramatic improvement. It may have been an improvement to a symptomatic state, but still such a dramatic improvement that there's no argument anymore.
So applying that to us as guys,
yeah,
and whether you believe it or not, whether you're supportive or not, guys, it's kind of hard to not see post-explant the changes. I mean,
it's impossible.
It's impossible, which tells you something. If you're having a hard time believing it, or can't wrap your head around it, guys, when they explant, there is a huge difference, an enormous difference. It's unmistakable, and that means something. Support them.
Yeah. Yeah, and any guy out there who, one of the arguments that I have that men have given me is like, Alex, can the entire industry be wrong? And here's what I want to share with any guy who's heard, like, has that argument. The answer is absolutely 100% with certainty, yes. And not only is it wrong when it comes to breast implants, but if you go back through medical history, medical the medical establishment has been putting things in women's bodies that hurt them far more than men for the entire time it's been around. We can go back to the medications that women have been put on, to the IUDs that were released into the market and killed women, to the very specific vaccinations for women that have caused massive challenges. And a lot of these things are still in the market today. So can the entire industry be wrong? Yes, it's a multi-billion-dollar issue.
Yeah.
That if you pull breast implants out of the market, you basically bankrupt the plastic surgery industry. It's one of the most profitable surgeries there is. It's one of the most popular surgeries there is. Thank God that in the past couple of years, it's actually started reducing in popularity because of all these issues. You know, it was, but at the time Katie got them, it was one of the fastest growing plastic surgery there was, and it was at all-time highs.
And it's one of the most protected ones too, because
Absolutely.
you
can't sue
cannot go back and say, yeah, because they have the best protection out of all the different type of doctors.
Yeah.
And remember that the girls should remember, and I'm not just saying this, and I know these guys agree with me 100%. You know, you're beautiful as you are. You know, you don't need to compete with people. It's just not necessary. You are beautiful who you are. You don't need that stuff. I know maybe you feel like it sometime, and probably us as guys are at fault on that. But, you know, we love our wives. We believe in them. They're beautiful how they are. Don't let that sway your decision. There's nothing to weigh out here. It's unsafe, and it's $1 billion industry, along with a lot of other things. When you put something foreign in your body's going to react in different ways. Some of the stuff, you know, heart valves and things, I mean, you got to weigh those differences. But when you're talking about an aesthetic thing here, weigh it out, because we've all been through it. Our wives, more importantly, have been through it. And we don't want you to have to deal with this, you know?
Yeah, unfortunately, I just looked it up. The breast implant market size in 2022 is going to hit $3.05 billion by 2028. And, you know, Bill and Carlos, I hope that videos like this, and that symposiums like this, and that organizations out there who are putting this information out there reverse that number. You know, after Katie went through this, I was so frustrated and so angry. You know, I wanted to like firebomb plastic surgery offices. I want to make it clear that I said I wanted to. I never actually did or would, but it was that dramatic. I was so frustrated with the way that the doctor, because, you know, I wasn't in Katie's initial appointment, but I had an appointment for some stuff that I had going on with my skin afterwards. And I talked to her surgeon before she had the surgery. And I remember telling him, like, how can it be okay to put silicone in the body? Isn't it a foreign body? Doesn't it create issues? And I got the same thing you and your wife did. Bill was like, he almost laughed at me. He's like, it's perfectly safe. Millions of women get them every year. You know, cancer, women with cancer get these. Like, how could it be a challenge for anyone? And, you know, the problem is, for 6 months, a lot of women are okay. For a year, a lot of women are okay. For 3 years, a lot of women are okay. It's not until it finally starts really shutting down all the major systems in the body that they're not okay anymore. And so that cause and effect is really hard to correlate.
I've got a good friend who's a doctor, a really great friend. We bounce stuff off, when we're not hearing what we think is right from a doctor's appointment, we would call him. And I found it really interesting. One day he goes, Bill, they call it practicing medicine for a reason. we're practicing, man. And we can only go by the education that we're getting. And we're educated in most instances by the manufacturers. So do your homework. If you feel something's wrong, something's wrong. Don't let any doctor who's got a big old diploma up on his wall, they're no better, no different than you are, and they're just learning. Again, why it's called practicing medicine. So, I mean, it really proved the point to me, because a lot of times we want to put doctors on this pedestal. Listen, doctors have done a lot of really great things. This is something that is unforgivable. And they need to be educated as much as we do, as our wives do, as much as the public, you know, should be educated. But I find it really offensive when you go into a doctor and he looks like, at you like you're a knucklehead, or worse, he looks at your wife like she's crazy. They're not crazy, you know, and I take great exception to it when they say that.
You know, when we look at the largest criminal fines in the history of the world, they have been paid by companies in the medical industry, every one of them.
Oh.
And because there's an entire medical industry that revolves more around profits than actually taking care of people, and it's a large part of the industry, and products have been introduced year after year that cause massive damage to people, and there has been long-term effects and long-term challenges, and then we finally figure things out. And you know, this is one of those things that I believe in the next 15, 20, 30 years, because that's how long it takes, that there's going to be a lot more information, and there's going to be a lot more out there, and that there might even be some criminal fines paid in this case because of what's been going on and how this has happened. I hope so. I want to see some of these companies go out of business. As a way of kind of bringing this around and maybe starting to shut down this conversation, what has been the biggest impact for you personally in your marriage that your wife has explanted? And I'll let the two of you answer, and then I'll answer. Bill, let's start with you. What's been the biggest thing that it's done for you personally?
You know, you talked about when Katie came through that door at the airport, and that vision that you had. And I would say that we've all had that. I've had that with my wife when I met her, and the incredible person that she was when I met her and that she is now. There's so many things that hurt her going through this process. When she explanted, that person that you fall in love with was back. And, you know, we just had a lot of really great times, and have gotten past a lot of that pain. And, you know, it affects you. It affects your marriage when you go through. You fight, you for no reason sometimes. Sometimes we're pissed. We're not getting attention. We're not, you know, whatever about us, you know, which is wrong, you know, but it's nice to see that stuff go away and a lot of that good stuff come back. So we're a lot closer. We talk a lot more frank. You know, Julie's my best friend, you know, and we enjoy traveling together and hanging out. Now we've got 5 grandkids. So life is spinning by, and it's really cool that, you know, before this, if I said, hey, let's fly out and see the kids or the grandkids, she would have, you know, it would have been really tough. Now she's the one dragging me out the door, and I'm like, give me a second, you know? So absolutely awesome. Cool. Let's go. You know, let's go to Honolulu for the weekend. Okay, let's go, you know? So a lot of really neat things, a lot of neat changes. Expect a lot to go back to normal. Expect some healing on some of the tough stuff you went through. Give them time to heal. So anyway.
Bill, thank you for that, man. I relate so deeply to so much of what you said. Carlos, same question for you. If we're going to wrap this up, you know, I think one of the most important things for us to share is like what has been the biggest change? What has been the biggest adjustment? What has been the biggest benefit for you personally with your wife having it, with Terry having explanted? What is it for you?
So I know most guys don't talk about this, but sex is one of the main things on a relationship, because usually when you start in the relationship, yeah, you care about that person, but it's also a sexual connection too. And when the implants are in, there was no energy for anything. Now, in my case, that was a big thing coming out of the implant, you know, where her mood changed. Now she's more energetic, more able to do other stuff, and sex was a big part. Other than also working out, eating at restaurants and all that, our life went back to normal, if not even better. You know, because all those years that she was 10 years that she lost of her life, basically. Now she wants to regain it and do all the things that she didn't do during the past 10 years. And one thing I want to tell the guys that will listen to this is listen to your wife, your companion, your best friend, your partner, more than when you have a conversation like this with your friend and you tell them, oh, I'm going to remove it. Bro, don't do that. Oh my God, they're beautiful. They're nice. No, that's just, a facade that we see in all commercials. Just listen to your wife and support them, because without your support is hard. Imagine them going alone, because a lot of guys say, okay, I'm out of the relationship. If you're going to take them out, I'm out of the relationship. Or
Goodbye.
even just the symptoms, they leave and they just walk out on them, like, oh, it was fun while you were looking like that. And they don't want to deal with that problem, So listen to them and be a human being, being that person that you promised to be with that other significant, like for better, for worse,
Yeah.
Be there for them. Because I bet if it was the other way around, they'll be there for you.
Yeah.
Well said, Carlos.
Yeah. Really well said. I'll close by saying that I would echo a lot of what the two of you had said. I think, for me personally, Katie and I didn't just live together and we weren't just married. We also worked together, and, we were running a business together. And during the times where she had implants, it got so difficult because she would forget things. She would make promises she didn't remember. She was inconsistent. The behavior was just all over the place. And there was so much of what was going on that I just didn't understand. I felt like we were going in this direction that just did not make sense. And it was maddening. And so I think for me, the biggest change personally is that Katie went back to being like the same consistent, grounding, empowered woman that she's always been. And for me, I agree with you completely, Carlos, that it's not about the aesthetics. It's not about the looks. It's about that this is the person you've chosen to spend the rest of your life with. And, when I met Katie, I felt like it was just like winning the lottery. And I felt so lucky that there was this woman who was just so incredible, who wanted to be with me. And when she had breast implants, I could feel that slipping away, literally sometimes on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes I didn't know if our marriage would even survive because I didn't understand what was going on that was making things so difficult. Like you said, Bill, sometimes we would fight for no reason. And I'd literally be asking myself, what is going on right now? I don't even understand what's happening. Sometimes I thought I was going crazy. Like maybe I had something going on where I didn't really understand what was happening and I was causing it. And I went through that exploration with therapists and, like trying to figure things out. And the difference of before and after is so profound, and was so profound for me that I felt like I had Katie back. And I think any spouse, any man who's been through this with their partner, their significant other, their wife, says almost the exact same thing. That like the easiest thing to say is like they were just back, and you don't know how far away they were until they're back. And so for any man who's out there thinking about this and still considering this and still has the arguments going on in your head, and Bill, I totally understand what you said, like just bail on them. But at the same time, I also feel that as men, we're under attack too. There's this entire industry telling us it's safe. There's this entire industry telling us, hey, you want your wife to look this way. It's not just an industry, it's an entire society saying you want your wife to look this way. And you look at Hollywood and you look at the examples out there, and yes, there's some body positive stuff that's happened recently and a lot more than I've ever seen in my life. But the vast majority of everything is women that look like Barbie dolls or close. And,
that's only that goes for about 5 minutes. It's
100%.
about what's inside, dude. I work in the industry. It's about what's inside.
So if there's any guy out there who's still like, if you're still thinking about that stuff, take it. You've heard it over and over again from the three of us, men who've been married for a while, who are madly in love with our wives. There's no aesthetic result that is worth the trauma and the frustration and the pain that your wife is going to go through for these things. And so get them out as fast as you possibly can. You can't schedule the explant fast enough. Carlos, Bill, it has been a pleasure to spend this time with both of you today.
It's an honor, guys.
Pleasure, Alex. Pleasure, Bill.